Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is an online teaching platform where you and I work together in order for you to be able to ace your life sciences. If you are new to the channel, my name is Tumi Silani. I am a life sciences teacher all the way in Milner High School in the Northwest Province. This is our lesson 2 on the lesson series of the menstrual cycle. On lesson 1, we looked at the process of the menstrual cycle. Now we will be doing some interpretive work in order for you to be able to answer graph questions that will definitely be examined in your examinations. Before we start with the lesson, we need to do a lesson series breakdown in order to see where we are and what we have done so far. So far, in lesson 1, we have looked at the process of the menstrual cycle, where we studied the different hormones and how they interact with each other in terms of the uterine cycle and the ovarian cycle. Like I said, on this lesson 2, we will be interpreting different graphs that you are definitely going to be examined on your formal tasks. On a separate video, we will be doing exam type questions. Let's get right into the lesson. Now that we've looked into the specifics of the menstrual cycle, let's see if we cannot interpret or explain the menstrual cycle in terms of graphs. Okay, now here we have an outline of a graph from day 1 to day 28. So we have actually 1, 2, 3, 4 graphs on the same set of axes. On the x-axis, we have days 1 to day 28. As you can see, I have coded them in different colors as keys to distinguish between the periods. So as you can see, from day 1 to day 13, first period, second period, day 14, third period, 15 to 22, and then the last period is day 23, all the way to day 28. All right. So on the first graph, we will have the growth of the follicle. Second graph, pituitary hormones, which is the hormones that are secreted by the pituitary gland. They are the ones with the abbreviations LH and FSH. Now, the ones that we write in full are the ones that are secreted in the ovaries, which is estrogen and progesterone. And then the last graph will indicate to us the thickness of the endometrium. All right, let us go back from the knowledge that we have of the menstrual cycle. So for you to be able to interpret these graphs, it's very important for you to know the content of the menstrual cycle. That's the only way you'll be able to interpret and explain this graph. Now, let's look at the first period, day 1 to day 13. The first event that occurs here is the shedding of the endometrium. So as you can see over there, the endometrium starts off as thick. And then for an average of 5 days, it breaks down and blood comes out, and then we call that menstruation. The breaking down or the shedding of the endometrium. Now, at day 5, the endometrium is now thin. How do we get to improve or to thicken the endometrium? The very first hormone that we said in the menstrual cycle will be secreted is FSH. Now, FSH starts high, and then what did we say the function of FSH is? The function is in its name, follicle stimulating hormone. So it stimulates the growth of primary follicles into a Graafian follicle or a mature follicle. So when FSH is secreted, let's look at what happens to the follicle. So here we have a primary follicle, and then as days go by, the follicle grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more it grows bigger and bigger, we say that it secretes estrogen. All right? So we expect that estrogen, because, let's go back, okay. Because the follicle started being small, the smaller it is, the less estrogen it produces. The bigger it becomes, the more estrogen it produces. So we expect estrogen to start low, and as the Graafian follicle becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, estrogen levels we expect to rise up. Let's see if that's the case. Absolutely. So when the follicle is still small, we have less estrogen. The bigger the follicle becomes, the more it secretes estrogen. Okay? And then, what did we say is the function of estrogen? The function of estrogen is to start the thickening of the endometrium. So estrogen thickens the endometrium. So as estrogen levels increase as they pass, go up, what do we expect will be the impact on the endometrium? We expect the endometrium to become thicker and thicker and thicker. Let's see if that's the case. Absolutely, that is the case. All right, so that's the end of period 1. And then period 2 will be our day 14. Which hormone is secreted mostly at day 14? It is LH. Now, LH starts very low. The pituitary gland does not secrete a lot of LH prior to day 14, and you will see at day 14 it peaks. After day 14, it reduces drastically down again. So LH will be the hormone that is peaking or at its highest at day 14. What did we say the function of LH is? Remember, as this follicle is maturing and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, inside the follicle, do you see that black dot? Inside the follicle, we have an ovum that is growing. So oogenesis is happening inside the growing follicle as the days pass. So the function of LH, if you can still remember, it ruptures the follicle, so it breaks it up, and then it releases an ovum. And this process is called ovulation. So we can say that the function of LH is to stimulate ovulation, or we can say the function of LH is to rupture the follicle to release an ovum. There we go. Now, the second function of LH is to take this ruptured follicle and convert it into a corpus luteum. Right? Okay. Now, we no longer have a follicle. We don't no longer have a follicle. What do we expect the levels of estrogen to do? Remember, estrogen was produced by and secreted by the follicle. Now we don't have a follicle anymore. what do we expect estrogen to do? Estrogen levels will drop because we don't have the thing that produces it, which is a follicle. Now we have a corpus luteum. Which hormone does the corpus luteum secrete? The corpus luteum secretes progesterone. So before day 14, before ovulation, progesterone levels were very low. Now, after ovulation, we have a corpus luteum, the thing that secretes progesterone. So we expect progesterone levels to rise. Now, when the levels or when the size of the corpus luteum remains the same and it does not degenerate, progesterone levels will continue to be high. Okay? And what is the function of progesterone? Now, remember, the thickening of the endometrium started off with what? It started off with estrogen. Now, estrogen levels have gone down. Then progesterone takes up from estrogen and it further thickens the endometrium, as you can see over there. So, before day 14, the endometrium was being thickened by estrogen, but after day 14, it will be thickened by progesterone. Okay? So we only have progesterone when the source of progesterone is there, which is the corpus luteum. We only have estrogen when the source of estrogen is there, which is the Graafian follicle. Okay. Now, what are the indicators? What are the things that show us whether ovulation has taken place or not? Guys, remember, on average, ovulation takes place at day 14. But like we said, every woman is different. All right? So ovulation may take place at day 16, day 17, or it may take place at day 13 or day 12. Whichever day that is, what are the things you should look for? Okay? What are the things that happen specifically when ovulation occurs? The first indicator is the presence of an ovum. Ovulation, like we said, is the rupturing of the Graafian follicle to release an ovum. So when there is an ovum, it means ovulation has occurred. Secondly, the presence of the corpus luteum. Remember, we said LH, the second function of LH is to take the ruptured follicle and turn it into a corpus luteum. So if we have a corpus luteum, it means ovulation has taken place. The third thing that happens during the day of ovulation is the peak of LH. The day in which LH is the highest, that signifies ovulation. Now, if remember that FSH levels dropped, okay, before day 14. So at day 13, they were at their lowest. Now, immediately after ovulation, you will see a sudden rise in estrogen levels before it drops back down. Okay? So the day when there's a sudden rise in FSH, that proves or signifies ovulation. Something else, the day that progesterone starts increasing, that signifies ovulation. It actually signifies that we have a corpus luteum, and a corpus luteum signifies that we have ovulation has taken place. So the day that progesterone levels starts going up, it shows that we have a corpus luteum now, and then that shows that ovulation has taken place. Or excuse me, let me just go Okay. Another thing, when you see estrogen levels starts going down, when you see a drop in estrogen levels, that day signifies ovulation. All right. Now, here, if fertilization did not occur, what are the indicators? What are the things to look out for? Remember, please check from day 22 onwards. Check from day 22. That is your benchmark. What are the things to look out for? Like we said, the corpus luteum will start to degenerate. And when the corpus luteum degenerates, remember which hormone does the corpus luteum produce? Progesterone. When the corpus luteum degenerates, then it means the progesterone levels will drop. So firstly, have a look out for the degeneration of the corpus luteum. If you don't see that, look at if there is any drop after day 22 of progesterone levels. That's your second indicator. Your third indicator, any day after day 22. So it can be day 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Any day when the endometrium becomes thin, it means fertilization did not take place. And then lastly, any day after day 22, when you see a rise in estrogen levels, a slight rise in estrogen levels, and when you see a slight rise in FSH levels, you must know that fertilization did not take place. This may be an exam question, guys, so please note these indicators. But if fertilization has occurred, what if fertilization has occurred? The indicators are, remember, look beyond day 22. The corpus luteum remains large or does not degenerate. Progesterone levels remain high or rise higher. Then the endometrium remains thick or becomes even thicker. Estrogen levels remain low, as well as FSH levels remain low. So that is our indicator. So to consolidate the menstrual cycle, here is a small table. Days from day 1 to day 3. The first hormone that is secreted, FSH, secreted by the pituitary gland. It stimulates the growth of the Graafian follicle. Target organ is the primary follicles. It converts the primary follicles into the Graafian follicle. Where do we find primary follicles? In the ovaries. From day 1 to day 13, again, which other hormone is secreted? It is the growing follicle. The bigger the follicle grows, the more it secretes estrogen. And then what's the job of estrogen? It thickens the endometrium. So the target organ is the target structure is the endometrium. And where do we find the endometrium? In the uterus. Estrogen is secreted by the ovary because the growing follicle is found in the ovary. At day 14, the only hormone that is secreted is LH. It is secreted by the pituitary gland. What does it do? It has two main functions. Stimulates ovulation. Secondly, it turns the ruptured follicle into a corpus luteum. The target organ is the Graafian follicle. Remember, it ruptures the Graafian follicle. So the target organ is the Graafian follicle. Where do we find the Graafian follicle? In the ovaries. From day 15 to day 28, the corpus luteum secretes progesterone, which further thickens the endometrium to maintain pregnancy. The target organ is the endometrium. Where do we find the endometrium? We find the endometrium in the uterus. And Because the corpus luteum is a structure inside the ovary, we say that the gland is the ovary. Okay guys, we have reached the end of our lesson 2 on the lesson series of the menstrual cycle. If you found this video impactful, please do like, comment, subscribe, and share the link to this video. Thank you so very much for watching. On the next lesson, we will be looking at exam type questions where we will be working out different activities and the possible questions that you might get and working out the skill to answering those questions. See you next time. Goodbye for now.